Sup everyone, Darkscream here, and I'm going to do something I haven't done in this channel in a long time. I'm going to do a video game review again. Yeah, that's right, another video game review. And while I don't have the fancy equipment to record gameplay footage just yet, it's probably for the best. I'm trying to keep spoilers to a minimum since this game I'm going to review is best played when it's a surprise from start to finish. Now, one of my favorite video game directors currently is Kotaro Uchikoshi, who has worked on niche visual novels like the Infinity series, slightly more popular titles like the Zero Escape trilogy, which I really love, and he was also the 3D modeler for the Pepsi Man game. And I've gotten into his work about 7 years ago when I played Zero Escape Virtue's Last Reward, which was the second entry in the Zero Escape series. And I immediately got hooked onto the puzzles and gameplay and the great characters and the gripping scientific narrative. It was all really fun. So obviously I checked out the game before at 999 and then I got hyped for Zero Time Dilemma and I enjoyed that game, flaws and all. So obviously, one of the games I have been anticipating this year was his latest project, The Somnium Files, a sci-fi visual novel murder mystery adventure published and developed by Spike Chunsoft. The game focuses on the playable protagonist Kanami Date, who is part of a secret police task force in Tokyo called the Advanced Brain Investigation Section, or ABIS for short. The beginning of the game opens with Date investigating a dead body of Shoko Nadami, who was found in an abandoned amusement park with stab wounds on her stomach and her left eyeball missing. So Date and his partner Aiba, who is an artificial intelligence that lives in his fake left eyeball, must gather clues to investigate who murdered Nadami before the serial killer takes its next victim. But that's not really the only mystery to solve in that game. Apart from the many little mysteries involving some of the other main characters that you're going to meet along the way, there's also the mystery of the Cyclops serial killings that happened 6 years prior to the events of the game, and how it links to the current murder mysteries, and even uncovering the past of Date himself, since our main character actually has no memories before 6 years. And like I said, this game is mostly a visual novel and puzzle adventure, and the story does have a lot of mysteries that actually happen, and you will play the game, you will have more questions than answers. But don't worry, once you complete this game, you will actually have all your answers. But I think it's very interesting that it starts off pretty simple, then you get more questions about everything, but then eventually it'll start to make sense. The visual novel segments come in the form of a first-person point-and-click adventure. You don't move anywhere, but you do move your head around, and you can visit various locations, look for clues by clicking on each thing, ask various characters questions about different situations, use your eyeball to zoom or x-ray objects to find hidden clues, etc, etc. And you're definitely going to do that a lot for sure. And sometimes you might do some occasional QTE minigames to spruce up the game a little and have some action set pieces, but it never really felt challenging or difficult or BS. In fact, I haven't even failed any of those segments. And the only reason why I remember them is because they're actually more humorous than I thought they were going to be. See, the game's tone, it is pretty dark, murder mystery after all, but it's also very humorous in between. He does sprinkle in some bizarre comedy, you know, whether it be the banter between Date and Aiba, whether you find an object in the background, you click on it and they have some rather silly observation to make. But the QTE action set pieces, I don't want to go too much into them, but let's just say that Date actually has the ability to increase his reflex speed whenever Aiba brings up something in front of him. I'm not even going to give that away, because it's pretty funny and silly at the same time. You just gotta see it for yourself. But you know, the visual novel segments, I never felt that it was dull or slowing down or boring me to sleep. Even though when I describe it to some people, they might just be turned off by that game premise. But no, I was fully engaged from start to finish. And usually my enjoyment of the game is measured by how much time, not just how much time I put into it, but how much time I put into it consistently. What do I mean by that? Well, maybe after a hard day at work, you want to, kick back, relax, and play some video games, but you don't know which game to play. Well, ever since I picked up on launch day, and I've played it for almost a week and a half, and I would just want to go back and play that game every free time I get. And yeah, that's how much I love that game. Maybe it's because I love murder mysteries. Maybe it's because I love to find out what the hell's going on. Maybe it's because I like the weird sci-fi elements and learning about certain brain dysfunctions in the game. Which, yeah, Uchikoshi actually does add those elements in his previous games before. I've learned a thing or two about hemispatial neglect now. The meatier part of I's gameplay comes from the Somnium segments. Whenever Dante can't get enough information out of a person of interest he's interrogating, he'll have to sync with their minds using an advanced machine deep in Abyss's lab. See, when Dante syncs with an individual, he, as well as a humanoid version of Aiba, will enter the individual's dream, which will be a bizarre, warped version of a location they've existed in the past. Dante and Aiba will have about 6 minutes in order to open all the mental locks in the sync, or the consciousness will be lost into the syncy, so to speak. Now, in the Somnium, you actually control Aiba and move around the location, and in order to open up mental locks, you have to interact with various objects in order to guess the clues of each mental lock correctly. So you're gonna have Aiba investigate, touch, smell, put her hand in, jump, scream, taste, input a fighting game combo, etc., etc. And in some Somniums, there are actual different branches opening different mental locks, which will reveal new secrets and puzzles to solve. And that's how story branching works in the game, which I actually love. Having a visual novel branch its story out by actions in the game as opposed to just making dialogue choices always spices things up more that way. And in Uchikoshi fashion, you have to complete almost all the branches in order to get to the branch of the true ending. And if you think that's going to take forever, the game's actually not that long. It's pretty short. It will take you about roughly 25 hours or so to complete. Now, I did mention the time limit in the Somnium, but it's actually not as frustrating as it sounds. I say this because time only moves when Aiba does, so you can actually stand still and look around, and you won't be wasting any second. Plus, you can collect the little collectibles called timies, which are bonuses that can cut the cost of spending your time interacting with objects. So, for example, if I had a timie that was 1/2, and this one object I needed to touch would cost about 10 seconds a time, I can reduce that down to 5 seconds. But you gotta be careful because there's also negative timies that can do the opposite and double the spending. And you're gonna be forced to use them the next time you interact with another object. There's no way around that, except for probably interacting with something that won't take as much time. And I usually hate time limits in most video games, especially ones that require you to think critically and solve puzzles like this one, but thanks to those elements I mentioned before, it never really, I never felt rushed, I never felt frustrated, and if you ever thought you weren't getting enough time, they actually do have checkpoints you can retry if you think you don't have enough time, so it really wasn't that much of a headbanger. Now that I got story and gameplay out of the way, let's move on to the graphics and art. See, character designs were done by Yusuke Kazaki, who's done character designs for No More Heroes and Daemon X Machina. And I gotta tell you, a lot of the characters stand out in a very over-the-top cosplay bait kind of way. For example, one of the characters, the scientist who helped develop the Aiba, Pewter, I did catch that he's a scientist at least, but the whole neon green goggles as well as the neon green inner collar of his jacket, it's got a very futuristic Gurren Lagannish design. And then there's also another character, Oda. You can tell he's an otaku, you can tell he probably loves idols, and he does. He's infatuated with another character in this game called Tessa, aka Aset. And he looks like both a former Pokemon trainer and a Digimon trainer because he wears goggles over his hat. And I have a hard time believing he's 24 years old. Yeah, he's 24 years old, but he looks way younger than me when I was 24. And then there's also, I mentioned Tessa, aka Aset, the young idol that works at Lemniscate. Her design is actually pretty normal by comparison to the other character designs I mentioned, but fun fact, she was used to tease and promote the game like a virtual YouTuber since the beginning of the year, and I'm going to post a link in the description below so you guys can see what I'm talking about. And even though the idol archetype is getting very, very, very tiring, I thought she was still a great character I was invested in through and through. And I'm glad I was able to follow her since the beginning of the Lemniscate channel at least. But I think my favorite design has to be Aiba herself. She has a mascot design which makes her look like a clear colored hamster with an eyeball for a face, so it's creepy yet adorable at the same time. But her humanoid design is really awesome. Maybe I'm a sucker for crazy ass anime hair designs that feel very 80s and 90s, but I just really like how her hair is all wild and long, and even some of her tails light up. Her red tails actually light up. I just thought it was a pretty cool design, even with the diamond-shaped patterns that she has on her legs. And Date actually has the similar diamond-shaped patterns on his jacket as well, except his is purple and black, so for some reason he just keeps reminding me of Persona Q. So it's clearly a very anime looking game with cel shaded models and all, and I know people are not going to be impressed by the visuals since it's not one of those big budget AAA games like Insomniac Spider-Man, but I still do like the art and designs a lot. When it comes to the animation, this obviously has more money than Zero Time Dilemma. Maybe it's because Zero Time Dilemma was designed with handhelds in mind, and this one was designed with consoles and the Switch in mind. So characters actually animate a little more for once. They actually move their lips a little more vividly now, even though the English dub lip syncing doesn't always match up. And they actually make versatile expressions. I usually do go for more visual flair styles as opposed to photorealism, which is why I think Guilty Gear is the best looking fighting game of this generation to date. Can't fight me on that, you will lose. But that's just me. The only criticism I have with the game's visuals, and it might be just exclusive to Switch, I'm pretty sure PS4 and Steam don't have this issue, but there were moments of the game where there were some slowdowns and frame chugging. But other than that, most of the time it did ran at a smooth 60 frames per second, even undocked. And it wasn't enough for me to buzzkill the game. I'm glad I got the Switch version because I believe that most visual novels are just better played as a handheld. Because in a way they're like books and you're holding a controller, the way you hold the book, you see what I mean when Now I don't have much to say about the sound and music for either Somnium Files other than it's really good. Soundtrack, feels like a slightly futuristic noir soundtrack. Some trippy sounds. If you played 999, the first Zero Escape game, you're gonna hear a very familiar sound when you get to the Somnium segments. And as for the English dub, I thought it was top notch for the most part. The dub shines best whenever the humor of the game kicks in. Because the surprise reactions and line deliveries just pretty much left me in stitches for most of them. So, yeah. That's all I could say about that. And I try to be as brief as possible when doing reviews of anything, but I just can't help but gush about either Somnium Files, as well as the director behind it. It's because of him I actually grew to appreciate the visual novel format a lot. Realized it could be used for more than just cookie-cutter dating sims. And I know there are probably other games before that were more revolutionary in its format, but I played Virtue's Last Reward during a time where my taste in video games were undergoing a huge paradigm shift. And I have to thank Uchikoshi for that. And I really do want you to give this game a chance. It's on the Switch, PS4, and Steam. You like murder mysteries like Heavy Rain, you like weird sci-fi technology, you like the concepts of exploring dreams, kind of like that Satoshi Kon movie Paprika. You like learning about brain disorders? Then I highly recommend you check this game out as soon as you can. Overall, this game for sure is going to make it in the 2019 Game of the Year section on my personal list. Definitely somewhere in the top 5. Not sure when. I mean, the year's almost over, but we still got some games I'm looking forward to down the line that I really need to play and complete, such as Trails of Cold Steel 3. But I do really love this game a lot. You know, I didn't expect to finish the game so quick, but that's how engaging it was. I couldn't drop the game every time I pick it up. I just couldn't let it go. And really, that's how much worth I value in a game. Why is that? Even though the game didn't have a whole lot of good, it didn't really have a whole lot of action-oriented gameplay, it still had some great characters and a great narrative, and that alone could keep me going. Well, I hope you enjoyed this review. And before I sign off, I am part of a Discord group, which I will post a link in the description below for you guys to join, where you can mingle and mingle with some of our other friends and subscribers. And occasionally you can also talk about our other projects. Like, I am part of a podcast called Absolute Counter, which I upload bi-weekly on this channel. But you can also talk about Magus's other podcast with his other co-host Xander, Blast Podcasting, where they talk about various pop culture stuff. And, you know, hopefully you'll have a good time there. Well, I hope you enjoyed this review. And with that, this is Darkscream signing out.